Boom. And just like that, he was live. So, good evening, everybody. First of all, welcome very much to the 8 p.m. live stream. And as you join, can I, as ever, urge you, if you're watching this on Periscope, retweet it, put it in your timelines, share it. If you're watching it on YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel. And similarly, if you're watching it on Facebook, share it as well. So that's the agenda for you folks. And if you like, as we go through this, give your finger a digital workout, hit the hearts buttons on Periscope, if you could do that. Now then, we've got a lot of stuff to get to talk about, but I know we've got a lot of competition. I mean, I've seen on Twitter today that my friends at Hearts of Oak, they've got Jared Batten on tonight, I understand. Spoiler alert, I'll be on Hearts of Oak on Thursday night. But anyway, they've got Jared Batten. And I know John Gaunt's been out going live on YouTube, and he's got all kinds of interesting guests. But nobody has got as interesting a guest as I have, because here she is. It is Rebecca Butler with us again for the next hour. So Rebecca, first of all, should I say ## a warm welcome to you.
Hello, David. How are you? And hello, everybody. Now, who came first? Oh, Tony Sanchez. Well done. You've beaten Jed. That's the main thing here, Tony. Beat Jed at all costs.
Yeah. Jed, you're going to have to raise your game, pal. I have to tell you, I'm just actually doing what Rebecca's done. I'm having a look through, and I'm not actually sure if Jed's actually even on the stream. But of course, Rebecca, Jed did a very
well. To be fair, Sylvia's always top 5. She really is.
Yeah. So listen, folks, the speed at which you join us is being monitored very closely by Rebecca. So you've got to be fast off the mark. But listen, Rebecca, first of all, really good to see you back and to have you back with us. And we got loads we want to chat about. I know I want to talk about the BBC last night of the Proms. Should we have Land of Hope and Glory, or is that passé? Should we have Stormzy? We'll talk about all that kind of stuff in due course. But what I wanted folks to pick up with Rebecca, I know a lot of you watched us last Monday night when we were talking about the whole sort of the whole exams, the whole education chaos that was really swirling around last Monday night, and Rebecca made a lot of really good points, which is one of the really, which is why I really like this live stream, folks, because we do talk about stuff in a greater depth than you're going to hear anywhere else, and that's why you should be here rather than, with all due respect, other streams. But we did talk, Rebecca, about what was happening in England with Gavin Williamson, and it happened in Scotland. It happened over here with me in Northern Ireland. So we talked about that. But then, as the week went on, what we saw was the decision taken unilaterally to basically just go with what the teacher said, and basically that led to something I want to share. I'm going to let me share a screen if I can here, Rebecca. See if I get this one right here. Right, there we go. Yeah, so look, folks, as you can see, GCSE results 2020, grade inflation confirmed as more than 25% get top grades. 76% rate grade 4 or above compared to 67%. So, Rebecca, I reckon that's the, let me get rid of this. That's the, as you can see, probably the greatest increase in grades that we've seen ever, probably. So what's your thoughts on that one, Rebecca? Good for kids? Good for education? What do you think?
Oh, it's terrible. Normal grade inflation is 2.5%, so it's 10 times the normal. And they're probably significantly less educated than previous cohorts. They will always be known as the cohort whose grades you don't believe. Now, there will be some leveling out. So you've got to remember that you just take away all of the very able students. They will fly. Okay. So the ones who should have got A's and A stars would have got A's and A stars and have gone on to their first choice. It did cause a major problem for the universities because, of course, before the government U-turn, universities had offered second places, so security offers. They'd offered them places, and then the government U-turned, and the ones they'd offered first choice places to, they then had to take them as well. So the universities are in complete disarray and are now saying that they have to accommodate more students. But it's the students at the bottom of the grades that are the really big problem. Now, Labour policy back in the end of last year, the back end of last year, Angela Rayner was very clear that teacher predicted grades caused greatest injustice for those at the bottom of the pile. And so those who could achieve in an exam rather than in a school environment, those who could make it better in an exam were denied the opportunity and had actually not got offers from the better universities by the time they were sitting their exams by virtue of the fact that they are disadvantaged. There's plenty of data on this. So we always knew that teachers overinflated. And that's why, by the way, we had to have this off-qual moderator. I think this cohort will always be known as the ones whose A doesn't mean an A, but the C doesn't mean a C either. So there are going to be kids going into the low-ranking, low-grade universities doing courses that really shouldn't be courses. What's going to happen there? Ignore Cambridge, Oxford, Imperial. Ignore the Russell Group. It's not really that important. And if somebody got their second choice, not their first choice, so what, matey? Your debt's still the same and your chances of getting a job are still the same. It's those at the bottom, the disadvantaged. They are the ones that are going to suffer most. So this is a complete own goal by this government. And what they should have done is, instead of reacting and overreacting, they should have had a strategy. They don't have strategies. Stan, I did explain what my solution was last time. I would, but my solution is now done and dusted. It can't happen. But my solution was shift the university start to January and examine everybody in.
You're right.
Give them and bring them back after summer holidays. Teachers haven't done anything anyway. Bring them back, get them back early in August to have August, September, October, catch up their time and examine them October, November, go through the clearing system in December, and stop being babies about summer holidays and Christmas holidays. Prioritize education and get the university term shifted to January. By the way, Stan, I don't see any harm at all in the university term shifting to January anyway, not just in a pandemic year, but the rest of the world is January. So there's no harm in us being like the rest of the world. So I do have a solution. I did have a solution. That would have been my strategy. However, when there was a problem, caused by the commies in Scotland, by the way, when there was a problem, I would have said, tough, we're sticking with it. Your exams are moderated anyway. This is now the way we're going to moderate it. We are sticking with it because this gives advantage to the least advantaged. So we're not going with teacher inflated grades because it produces too many injustices. That's what I would have done.
So I think Stan, that Rebecca's explained pretty much exactly what you said last week, Rebecca, which I thought it was actually a really good idea. I think the thing that kind of, made me wince a bit was typically the media always zone in on GCSE day with all the cameras being sent to selected schools, and they open up and the kids are jumping with delight. And we saw that last Thursday. And, I'm conflicted on it because I'm not so old that I can't remember when I got my O-levels as it was a long, long time ago. And it's a big moment in a young person's life, I suppose. And obviously, we want to see young people do as well as possible. But there's a degree of fraud about it as well, in my opinion. As you say, the teacher. I saw a statistic that said, Rebecca, that somebody did a test of teacher forecasts, teacher giving grades versus actual grades. And I think it came out about 13% of the time the teachers were right, which means that simple maths, 87% of the time the teachers were wrong. So I actually feel that these kids have been disadvantaged in a way by the folly of the government, instigated, as you rightly say, by our SNP friends up in the Soviet Union of Scotland. So I mean, that's where it originated. But they've all caved in, and it does nobody any service at all, I think. And actually, just on the teachers, I mean, the teachers have got out of this one pretty lightly as well, because I guess they all feel pretty smug about it. They've given, all the kids have done brilliantly. And it's like that Melanie Phillips. I don't know if Melanie Phillips wrote a really good book, a long time ago, 25 years ago, called it was a quote from Alice in Wonderland, the dodo race. Everyone's a winner and all must have prizes. And we're at that point now, Rebecca. I mean, in grade A at GCSE now, it's like, what is it, 37%, I think, got an A or an A plus. Back in my day, it was about 10%. Are kids that much smarter, or have we just dumbed down the syllabus?
Well, everyone's a winner, right? Tony Blair's education wouldn't allow state schools to have competitive sports days. Everybody has to win. And so, when you aspire to the lowest minimum standard, you achieve the lowest minimum standard because it's the easiest standard to achieve. And certainly looking at law students, the standard of English is shockingly poor. Yeah, Sylvia, Blair is to blame. Shockingly poor English at A level now. And, actually, I saw this, the aggression of the full stop. It's rubbish. They don't find it aggressive. They find it aggressive that you pointed out they don't know how to punctuate. That's what they're finding aggressive. They actually don't know how to punctuate. They don't know how to construct a sentence. That's partly due to the fact that we don't insist that people learn foreign languages anymore. If a good old 3 years learning German, and you soon pick up some grammar, and in French you pick up punctuation and pronunciation. Why are these skills denied children? Why?
Yeah.
Why?
And actually, Rebecca, the thing about those skills, if you learn those skills properly at that age, it sees you through the rest of your life. That's why education is so important, so crucial. But Tony Blair did absolutely and totally undermine that. And apart from a short period, which I think we've talked about with Michael Gove, trying to reverse some stuff, really, a lot of the damage is still being done. And we have these woke kids now, allegedly anyway, although I think it's probably a bit of a media story about being triggered by full stop. But it is possible, by the same token, they don't know what a full stop is or why it exists. So, But anyway, look, as I say, I just wanted to touch on this because we did talk about this last Monday. I think what we said, Rebecca, was 100% on the mark. Unfortunately, as is the way of being a Cassandra, being proven right is never really a great experience. But nonetheless, it's what it is. But anyway.
It is depressing that this cohort will be remembered for the group that you don't trust their grades, rather than actually saying this is the group that went through into university and the government managed it fairly. There are so many interim positions that they could have adopted, and they run scared from being temporarily unpopular with, say, the students. And they've got all these 28-year-olds they need some aggressive people like me in Downing Street to say, well, sod them, they're irrelevant. All of your criticism, by the way, is a Chinese bot, as we now know. 170,000 accounts taken down by Twitter because they're Chinese bots. Why don't you listen to common sense? Why don't you go and speak to the man on the Clapham omnibus about this and ask them what they think? Why don't you go on to David Vance on Monday night and listen to what Tory voters are saying about this issue? They're just completely disconnected with common sense now, not just reality, but common sense decision making. So in an attempt to offset a mini scandal, they have gone and disadvantaged a massive, massive cohort, because now ones who shouldn't have gone to A levels now think they're able to do A levels because nobody's got below a C now, have they? So there's no failures now. So now sixth form colleges are saying we need Nightingale colleges. Well, good luck finding teachers there. You bloody back anyway. So they've handed a slam dunk to the teachers' union. They've handed a slam dunk to the left wingers, and they are incompetent.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the other thing is, I kind of took a bit of exception to the students jumping up and down saying, "Yeah, we've got all multiple A's, multiple B's, B's mostly, I suppose. We've really earned these." No, you haven't, because you didn't do any exams. You literally have not earned anything you've got. So it's a cohort, Rebecca, that will be forever, or at least hopefully forever, the only one that will be remembered as the one that, as you said, the government has manipulated them into the next stage, the next year. And it won't end well for those kids, for many of them. Not the top ones, but the ones further down. It won't end well for them. Their expectations have been massively massaged, and that's not a good thing.
Kez has just made a really good point. Kez 321. Next, it will be the degree courses are too hard. Now, that has actually already come up, Kez, because the medical schools are saying we have now been forced to take people who we know are not able to do the course. We offered them all 3 A stars, and now they've been given those A stars, and we know that a high percentage of them are not going to be capable of doing medicine. So now we're going to have to tailor our courses, and there are going to be people who at university level fail. So they're going to be forced to resit years at university, or they're going to leave university because they actually can't crack it. Therefore, they're going to leave university with a student debt to you, the taxpayer, and nobody's ever going to repay that debt for the person who shouldn't have gone to university in the first place, or the person who went to do medicine should probably have done biomedical sciences or another easier degree first and then gone on to do medicine if they really were up to it in 3 years or so time. So they are destroying people's ambition and their careers. Because, by the way, with medicine, if you drop out of medicine because you can't pass the final exams, there aren't many jobs you can do because it is vocational training. And so we don't see unemployed medical students because 99% of medical students pass medical school because the entry requirements are so high. But now you're right. They are going to have to dumb down the degrees in order to give them the degrees in 3 years' time, in order that they have a chance of paying back their student loans.
Yeah. Well, I think, as I say, it's kind of a bit sad to see what we've seen in the past the last sort of half a week or so. But it was kind of inevitable, as you say, a government that's just drifting, just going for comfortable media headlines, and they got the media. The media were euphoric about it, and so it goes. And where it's going, no one knows. Maybe we do. Anyway, folks, I wanted to start with that, but now, drum roll. I wanted to move on to something which has certainly caught the imagination in the past day or so, and that is I'm going to just bring up there we go, the headline. Make sure it appears. Hopefully, hang on. Oh, and there you go. So as you can see, the Guardian. I mean, where else would I go for my news but the wokey Guardian? The Guardian telling us that COVID restrictions seen as an opportunity for change in the wake of Black Lives Matters protest. Goes on to say, Rebecca, traditional flag-waving anthems of rural Britannia, Land of Hope and Glory, could be dropped from the last night of the Proms because of their perceived links with colonialism and slavery. And the BBC is reportedly considering whether to axe the patriotic staples in the wake of the BLM protests. And COVID restrictions are seen as an opportunity to make the change. So, Rebecca, what do you think then? Au revoir, Land of Hope and Glory, or what say you on this one?
Well, it's obvious what I'm going to say. Don't be so goddamn ridiculous. You're in Britain. Last night of the Proms is an institution. These are effectively, like Jerusalem, our national anthems. Sorry if they appear a bit nationalistic, but if Britannia didn't rule the waves, we'd be speaking Spanish. So, sorry. I actually looked at quite a few national anthems today. They are all pretty nationalistic, but I think there's a clue in the name somehow. And you know what? I'm now saying this really blatantly. If you think Britain is racist, sod off. Just go. Really, please just go, because you're not actually contributing to society anymore if you keep telling us we're racist. There are many thousands of people trying to get here. They are trying to risk their lives to get here. So you could either warn them that it's such a horrible place when they get here, or you could just swap. Because I think right now, I'd rather have a Syrian who's escaping a murderous regime, or an African who's escaping a stateless, violent regime in Central Africa. I'd rather have that person who's been willing to risk all to get here than the whinging, overprivileged, middle-class people for whom nothing is enough. So, you know what? Just go, please. I don't want to hear you anymore. I've had enough of you. I really have. I have no sympathy left, because they've got this little stranglehold. And now, as they say, give a man an inch and he'll take a mile. That's what they're doing. Everything is under attack. Everything. We're idiots. Kneel down, Keir Starmer, and they'll smack you round the head while you're down there. You're idiots.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to say about this. First of all, as you say, I mean, there's nothing wrong with a nation celebrating being a nation. It's kind of, as you say, Rebecca, it's in the title. And furthermore, I mean, the last nights of the Proms has become a pretty much established celebration of Britishness. And it's pretty inclusive, actually, because, apart from those particular anthems, there's other music from Wales, from Scotland, and even actually from Northern Ireland. So it is pretty inclusive. Now, obviously, that inclusivity isn't good enough for the wokies, because I suggested earlier, as a tongue-in-cheek, mind you, that maybe a reggae version of Rule Britannia might would that excite them? Probably not, because maybe it needs to be grime, it needs to be gangsta. They really need we really need to either get down, or, as you've just said, tell them to sod off, because this is our history and this is our culture. Rule Britannia, you mentioned, if it wasn't for Britannia, we'd be speaking Spanish. If it wasn't for Britannia ruling the waves, we'd still
the Battle of Trafalgar.
We'd still, but also slavery, which they're so offended by. It was the British Navy, as we all know on this stream, Rebecca, that played such a vital role in stopping the Atlantic slave trade. So it's like they, in pursuance of their woke agenda, history goes out the window, culture goes out the window. They just trample right through it. In fact, actually, the suggestion regarding Rule Britannia and Land of Hope and Glory, I believe that came from, did I get this right, Rebecca? It's a Finnish lady who's going to be conducting the orchestra. And it was a Finnish suggestion. Did you see that?
I didn't actually, but you know what? Go back to Finland.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's such.
Somebody else. If you can't do it, sod off.
Yeah.
It's our tradition. Just sod off. Really, go. I don't want you, really.
Yeah, well, I think as Mike says, some people would like to see the red flag as their national anthem. Oh, yeah, I'm sure if the red flag was played.
Late, by the way, I did notice your late attendance tonight, Mike. See, noted.
Yeah, you've been noted. Now you've put on warning there. Be more punctual. Here's an interesting comment. I'm Irish, and I love playing Rule Britannia in my car. Sometimes this is one of my hobby courses. Sometimes you just gotta love the music. You actually, if you want, you can detach it from the stuff around it. I love music. I love music by actually woke lefties, as is frequently pointed out to me. But I can divorce the music and the enjoyment of that from, if you like, the peripheral politics of it. Surely we should be big enough to do that. And that's great to see an Irish person on saying that they love Rule Britannia. Just like I love lots of Irish music as well. We can love art. This is actually, here's the thing, Rebecca. Diversity, that word's been taken, just like racism, and it's been bent and warped out of all shape. I think we both, and lots of people here, we really like diversity of thought, of culture, of music, of all these things. But the only culture that doesn't seem to be appreciated is British culture.
Yeah. I mean, I sing the French national anthem if I'm over there. I don't know most of the words, but I sing it. I can sing Jana Gana Mana, which is the Indian national anthem. I'd been to the proms and seen the Bollywood proms and really enjoyed them. Yeah, you enjoy music for music's value. And yes, there are some very rousing songs, but a couple of my Black followers on Twitter have actually said, not in my name, Sunshine, I quite enjoy the proms, and I don't want you ruining it because you think Black Lives Matter more than anything else. You're not doing this in my name. And I think people like that speak up, and they are at grave risk of being called coons. And I found out that's what a coon is, by the way. They're found out they're going to be called coons, and they get piled on by other. It tends to be Black people, by the way. It's not the other minority ethnic groups. It tends to be Black people who are the really angry ones about things. And they get piled on. It's absolutely outrageous. You can't even say, not in my name. I don't want this. You're not allowed to go against that narrative.
I think I'd agree with what Kez says. Again, another good comment. These sort of things should unite us as a nation, and they have united us as a nation, actually. And we are allowed to celebrate our history and the things, our achievements. There's nothing wrong in that. And so the fact that they would pick on these two particular anthems, if you like, is quite telling. But it's also telling that it's the BBC. And that's what I really wanted to now move on to. So I think, as regards to the anthems, they can sort off. We're keeping our anthems. The last night of the proms really needs to stay exactly as it is. Although, actually, one thing, Rebecca, one thing to say. Not a lot of people will know this, and you probably may not be aware of this either, but the BBC have amended last night of the proms in ways which people living in England would not know. So here in Northern Ireland, for example, and I believe it's the same in Scotland, they don't play, I think Rule Britannia isn't actually played because it would divide us A divided society. And that's disgraceful. It's absolutely appalling. BBC Northern Ireland have actually played along with this. So they've taken chunks of the last night of the Proms and just hived them off. And that's happened in Northern Ireland, it's happened in Scotland, and now they're wanting to do it in England. So I on behalf of people here in Northern Ireland, and I'm sure patriotic people in Scotland feel the same, you know, the BBC's outrageous the way they've already salami sliced it, Rebecca. It's just they haven't done it in England yet. So
yeah, they think they have some sort of mandate to do it. They think they can. And so they do. And when an announcement like this comes out, even despite the fact that Oliver Dowden spoke out against it,
I saw that. Yeah.
Even though Oliver Dowden spoke out against it,
yeah.
You know, what's Tony Hall going to do about it? Very little, because the programming people have quite a lot of autonomy.
Yep.
And so, you know, they just want to get down on the knee. So, you know, soon we'll be just, you know, smoking cannabis and singing Bob Marley songs, but we won't be allowed to sing it because it's cultural appropriation. So, you know, you want a Black Lives Matter Proms, I think you better just have your own, because it bears no relation to the Proms as we know them. The Proms are what they are. They're massively diverse anyway. As I said, I go to the Bollywood one all the time because I know a lot of the songs. But, you know, I'm fed up of it now. But, David, before you move on, because I know you do, anybody who follows me on Twitter will know that I put up a thread today in which Black Lives Matter was massively mentioned. And for anybody who hasn't read it, go onto my Twitter feed and read a very long thread from the New York Times on how Chinese accounts have hijacked Twitter. And these are accounts they're human bots. They are people deployed around the world, initially to flood Twitter and other social media with tweets directed in each country on the lockdown. So China basically wanted the world to follow the Wuhan lockdown, and they targeted Italy initially. And so because government policy is now made up based on Twitter, they flooded Twitter with Italian-sounding accounts calling the government, you know, reckless and what have you. And that's why they locked down. And at ditto, they did the same in France, Spain, Germany, Denmark, Holland, the UK, Scotland. And a lot of the policy making was actually, they reckon, on account of, for example, Boris Johnson being called a genocidal maniac when herd immunity was suggested. And so these bot accounts were very, very active in native languages, just circulating around the globe to get lockdown to happen. And this was a Chinese Communist Party stimulated phenomenon. But what the research showed is that when George Floyd was killed by the police, those accounts all transferred their trolling and their sensationalizing into BLM. So if anybody thinks that BLM is a big issue, it's not. There aren't that many people who support it. Actually, by the way, it is a tiny number. But on Twitter, it seems like a lot. But the actual numbers are quite small. And so, you know, if 1,000 people, even 10,000 people turn up in London, it's no big deal. Not that many people support it. And Twitter is shutting down masses and masses of these accounts. 170,000 got shut down because they are Chinese bots. So I'm worried that policy is actually done on Twitter. That's what is happening, that they stick their finger up to see which way the wind's blowing on Twitter, and the Chinese know that. So they pile in and will put in adverse results for all of us because of Twitter.
Well, I mean, actually, just to tackle that, I think that thread, which, by the way, you should go and read. It's really interesting. I'm in possession of certain information regarding Chinese Communist Party as well, and it's sort of adjacent to that, Rebecca. I think the Chinese Communist Party did play the West over COVID-19, especially in the early part of January, February, March, those 3 months. And, you begin to wonder just exactly what was happening exactly in Wuhan. What was the scale exactly of the pandemic? What the hospitals that they knocked up in a couple of days? What exactly happened in those hospitals? And I think there's going to be a lot of interesting information emerge. It hasn't emerged into the public domain yet, and I like to try and make sure I get my facts right. But it speaks to the same thing, Rebecca. The Chinese Communist Party is influencing our world through these social media platforms. They're very adept at it. They've got huge, they're very efficient at being able to do it. Twitter need to take down millions more. I mean, I've complained over the last few weeks because I've lost about 1,000 followers, but probably all Chinese. In which case, bye-bye, people with like followers.
I don't know if people remember, it's a really, really stark tweet, which has turned out to be produced by China. It was the image of a guy walking through a transport turnstile of some sort, and he just fell flat on his face. Mm-hmm. And this is what COVID does to you.
Yes.
It's completely fake.
Yeah.
But it got like 10 million views, and it just inspired fear. I actually did a tweet on this, David. Can you believe this? I did a tweet on Chinese misinformation back in February, and I'll retweet it now. I will find it because I do know some of the answers. The reason why they didn't announce the virus until too late was because China was signing off a free trade deal with America in December. So they didn't announce the novel COVID until the very end of December, and 2 or 3 weeks of horribly wasted time. The answer to your other question is, what about the hospitals? Those were not hospitals. Those were quarantine centers. So they weren't kitted out as hospitals. They were only dormitories. That was all they were. And what they were doing is they were putting whole families into these dormitories to quarantine them. So this is where Jacinta Ardern, gets to restrict people's liberties. And so there were never hospitals, but they used images, they faked images, they put because of the One Belt, One Road, the BRI. I will retweet the video for people who didn't catch it back when I did it. It's all about One Belt, One Road. It's about these infrastructures, it's these supply chain infrastructure that is buying up the whole of Central Africa. They've bought ports in Greece so that they can get from Iran to Turkey to Greece. They bought ports and railways in Italy, and Italy has 300,000 people from Wuhan working in the leather factories of the north of Italy. And there were like 5 million flights into and out of Wuhan before they deigned to tell the world about this virus. And then they over-egged how dangerous the virus was.
Yeah, that's right.
It does exist, right? It is a dangerous bug. It does put a lot of otherwise well people into hospital, but it doesn't kill otherwise well people. Every single death has a comorbidity, but it is not that lethal. It's not a MERS or a SARS-1 that has high infection fatality rate. It's not one of those. We know.
But China created the impression that it was the Spanish flu, basically, stroke hashtag Black Death, combined. It was this awful thing. And as you say, they faked images. They faked so much. I mean, it's like so much actually up to do. This has got to be a separate one we're going to do, Rebecca, on China, because it's not, these things are not commonly understood or commonly discussed in our media. For reasons which I'm sure we'll discuss when we get onto it ourselves. But yeah, the thread that Rebecca's put up on her timeline, go and have a look at it, have a read. It's all about manipulation, and the Chinese are really good at it. But back on topic, Rebecca, back on topic. The BBC is very good at manipulation as well, isn't it? And when we look at, moving from the Proms, just more generally, and I mean, I've seen the outgoing BBC Director General, Tony Hall. Did you see him? Tony reckons that the BBC, and this is something that Toby Young was tweeting about, and Peter Hitchens as well, actually. So lots of good people. Tony reckons that the BBC can be the voice of Britain, I can't even say it, post-Brexit. Rebecca, do you think the BBC can be the voice of post-Brexit Britain?
No. And what Tony Hall was actually saying was we need more money.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
We need more money because we need to expand our BBC World Service into all these other nations. And he linked it back to the Russia report. But I did a tweet on this when the Russia report came out. It's like shock horror. Did anybody realize it was any different? Our biggest enemy is China. That's why we're all in lockdown with this coronavirus. So, but the BBC thinks we need more world service in Russia. The BBC hasn't worked out that the youth do not watch news. In fact, no. I would love us to do a poll. How many of our followers, your huge number and my little number, actually watch the news anymore on the BBC or Channel 4 or ITV? I reckon it is a tiny number. And that is a global phenomenon. It is a global phenomenon. Yes, the BBC World Service is trusted. But when I was in India in February, my friend couldn't believe me when I said that we get a criminal conviction. We get thrown in prison for not paying the license fee. And I said, you see the World Service, you don't see BBC woke o'clock news, that you're not seeing the same news as us. And the World Service is brilliant. It's free to air. But you know what? Use some of the license fee. Use Emily Maitlis's salary for a start. What's her name? Hussein, the girl on the program. Yeah. I'll think of it in a minute. Use their salaries and increase the World Service on their salaries, because frankly, get rid of them.
Well, actually, as you've been talking, I'm sure you've seen the stream pretty much universally, just going through it. Virtually nobody is paying attention to the BBC News, or pretty much it's no. What I'll do is I'll put a poll up on my Twitter stream after this, asking the very simple question, actually. But I think you're absolutely right. The BBC gets 3.8 billion a year via the license tax to fund all its nefarious activities. But of course, that number has been coming down, because just like our friends on the stream here, fewer and fewer people are actually paying to watch the BBC. The younger generation is kind of completely walked away from it, by the way. Anything demographic 18 to 30, they're on their smartphones, they're on their computers, they're not watching, the social media is their news. So the BBC has lost that. And that's, I mean, today's sort of demographic is tomorrow's future. So down the road, Rebecca, in 20, 30 years, the BBC's gone anyway. But I, so that the funding, I mean, they're flailing around, desperate to get revenue in. Fewer and fewer people watching their programs, nobody paying any attention to their news. I mean, it's a very unhealthy situation for the BBC, isn't it?
Well, the thing that we don't talk about that often is because we know that Twitter has taken over news feeds, but it's being fed by the BBC and ITV and well, BBC and Sky especially, and they feed clickbait, as you've seen with me on RT. They just do the interesting bit with two women shouting at each other. It's the clickbait, which is what Twitter is. But the bit we don't talk about is print media, and I really do think that we should preserve the print media actually at the expense of BBC News. I don't want BBC News. I want to be able to choose on a subscription service, because I opt out of BBC News. BBC drama, fine. ITV drama, they're excellent, no doubt about it. A lot of that is independent production companies. It's not BBC content. But print media, let's talk about print media, because what we do need is journalists to hold things to account. We need journalists, responsible journalists, to hold the government to account, particularly when we've got a rubbish opposition like we have now. So, look, even if we don't agree with The Guardian, I think we can all agree that we need a Guardian, we need an Independent, we need a Telegraph, we need a Times, and there are certain people who want the red tops. We need the print media. And so I would say, actually don't slag it all off and just remember the bits that are the best. We are at grave risk of losing print media before defunding the BBC, because some newspapers like The Guardian are at risk. And I know politically we would say, well, good riddance, but actually I wouldn't. I really wouldn't. I mean, how happy we would be not to hear Owen Jones, but the reality is that him in print media is perfectly acceptable in our society. Don't like what he says, but I don't care. I do want to preserve having print media, which means buying your subscriptions.
Well, yes, but the difference is, unlike yourself, I mean, I love the written word, so I don't think any, to celebrate the demise of the written word is really anti-civilizational in my view. But there's a difference. The BBC extort your cash via the license tax. If you want to subscribe to The Guardian, the Telegraph, the Times, whatever, it's a choice. And actually Sky, for that matter, which I think is a pretty deplorable news channel, at least you've got a choice there. You can say, well, no, I'm not going to pay that, and that's fine. But the BBC... But I haven't
actually, David, because, think of the hundreds and thousands or millions of people on the planet who want to watch sports. So, I'm very sporty, so I watch golf, I watch cricket, actually not a huge amount of football on Sky, but I actually have to buy that as a subscription. Otherwise I don't see anything anymore. They took our national sport off the BBC. They took cricket off the BBC. It's an outrage that they did that. The only thing we've got left is rugby, and that by the skin of its teeth, because Sky has got bigger buying power than the BBC and ITV. So I am forced into Sky. I don't watch it, but I am forced to pay for it. So I haven't got a choice.
Yeah. That is discussion that frequently happens in the Vance household as well, and on exactly the same basis. There's a big cricket lover in this house, and it's not me. And you got to have your Sky subscription. But Rebecca, what do you make of the news that we've seen in the last few days that Rupert Murdoch apparently has put up 20 million to fund what would be a new TV channel that would be broadcast with potentially the likes of Andrew Neil, the likes of Nigel Farage. What do you think of that? GBTV. What's your thought? Some people are very euphoric about it. What do you reckon, Rebecca?
Well, we all know what it's going to be dismissed as. It's going to be fascist scum media block, defund it, injunctions, all the usual nonsense. Great. And actually, one of the independent producers who works for Nigel Farage has started following me on Twitter today. So I'm hoping for an invitation. Hoping to be asked to appear. But no, we need that. Where is the right of centre space? Yeah. I mean, to suggest we'd be like Fox News is ludicrous, because American politics is so far right anyway that what they perceive as left is what we perceive as central. So there's nothing Britishly left wing about the Democrats. They are actually more like the Tories, and the Republicans are far more, fundamental rights, Christianity, home and hearth kind of very right-wing politics, as we would define them in Britain. So they are the really big capital C and bold conservatives in America. So anything that is as, comfortable with Trump as Fox News is never going to survive in the UK, because we don't have the appetite for that. All we have an appetite for is something in the middle. That's what this will do. If it puts itself in the middle, Andrew Neil, who could be better?
Oh, he's the best.
Independent journalism. He's well researched. Yep. He's well trained. He's well experienced. And my God, when he interviews, he's like me in court. He's like a barrister. He's completely forensic and doesn't let anybody get away with anything. Farage, he's got an enormous ego, and he will discredit it to some extent, but I think he will be given his own show. I think so, I think Andrew Neil would be seen as like the linchpin of the station. And then there are other commentators around who we just don't have a voice anymore.
No, there are. I mean, there are some. There's lots of voices around. When you look at the mediocrity that presents on the mainstream media as it currently is, to suggest that there are not equally more competent individuals around, of course, it's a non sequitur. Of course there are. But so I thought that was interesting that there could be something that for 2021 that would maybe fill that huge gap we've got in the UK, as you say, Rebecca, because there's just nothing there at the moment. The only thing we've got is some people have talked about radio here. We've got talk radio, where we've got people like, Julia Hartley Brewer and Mike Graham and whatnot. These people seem to be doing, especially Mike Graham, who's pretty much telling it like it is. He seems to be doing very well, and that would suggest to me there's an appetite, Rebecca.
Yeah, and can I also, say to people, go and listen to Spiked, go to Brendan O'Neill, subscribe to him, go to Unheard. There are a lot of, but they are all independent. They're not in the mainstream. If you're in your 60s or 70s, unless you're quite savvy, you wouldn't know that. Talk radio isn't a radio station. It's actually it's video streaming.
Yeah,
it's live stream. So I think this new station will actually be like LBC or Talk Radio. It will be a live streamed version, and it will have interviews, and the studio. It won't exist. It can exist virtually. And Murdoch's not afraid to throw money at it. He knows there's an appetite for it. Yeah. By the way, massive appetite in Australia for that as well. There's a huge outcry in Australia for how wokey their TV broadcasting has gone. This is a worldwide phenomenon. It's not just us. We are not alone here. So there are across the planet. We're being silenced by bots, or silenced because we're afraid to be called racists or, transgender, whatever they turfy, whatever, I don't know. They're afraid to be like J.K. Rowling and pounced upon. So actually, I think we are the majority voice. Last December's election proved that. Brexit referendum proved we are the majority voice. So, it's about About time. About time.
Yeah, well, I mean, I welcome anything that brings. Again, we've mentioned this several times tonight. We actually do believe in diversity. We want to hear, like, I want to see Andrew Neil grill somebody from the right, somebody from the left, somebody from forever. I don't, why? Because, as you say, he's forensic. He does his research, and it makes fascinating viewing. I think the BBC became uncomfortable with Andrew Neil because of that very fact, and when you look at, I think some of those who now follow on from him that the BBC stick with, the likes of the Andrew Marrs of this world, I think there's a chasm of difference in terms of quality, in terms of tenacity. But that's the BBC for you, So for me, Rebecca, we do need to hashtag defund the BBC. As I used to say back in the glory days when they let me go on, I used to say, well, if it's as good as you say, people will pay to subscribe. And if it's not, you'll have to cut your cloth. But that's not the BBC, not remotely interested in that argument, obviously. And that's why it's going to have to be dragged kicking and screaming into the 21st century would be nice.
The 20th century would be preferable.
Well, that would be good. Yeah, because it is an anachronistic model. I mean, again, going around the world, Rebecca, there are not, this idea of a state broadcaster. I mean, it's so 1930s. It's really not
very Pravda, isn't it? Very North Korean, glazed eyes, just reading off an auto cue. And then Kirsty Walk defending Emily Maitlis. We're not here to talk facts. What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, no.
They paid £350,000 a year to give us facts. Thank you very much. Newsnight is a news program. It says it in the title, so it is a news program. So
Mike's brought up. Do you remember that famous interview? Andrew Sturgeon or Andrew Neil interviewing Nicola the Great. Yeah, I remember that. That was that. But I think that therefore GBTV could do very well because of that reason. As I said, I put on my. I wrote a short article in this, put it up in Alt News Media. I take slight exception to being called GBTV because that UK TV would be better. GB, maybe it's taken.
But will it be a Sky channel? Do you think?
Would it be available? I don't know.
I know Murdoch sold Sky, but do you think Sky would bid for it?
Well, I mean, actually, Rebecca, here's the deal, everybody, because I've researched this. If you want to, we could actually, Rebecca, we could set up our own TV production unit, push out content. We could, I forgot the actual figure, but for not an outrageous amount of money, you can actually buy, get yourself access a satellite channel, and there you would be. So it's more about the will to do it and to have good people who would work in the environment, as you said. I reckon if they do this and they do it well and they bring in other people, it'll tap into what you've said, Rebecca, the majority of us who are interested in this kind of more forensic and more challenging and interesting, not American, because you're right, Rebecca, we're not the US. And although I like some things on US TV, news TV, like certain people on Fox, I like Tucker Carlson, for example. Others not too keen on, but we're not the same as that. And so so there's a niche there. So maybe, just maybe, 2020. If we can wave bye-bye to 2020, get into 2021, and we get a brand new TV channel that actually talks about the issues the way we try to talk about the issues, I think that would be a really good start to what would be the new year, don't you?
Yeah, I do. And I'm just about to go on to another program, which some of I know my Twitter followers will know, which is Unity News Network. That's another really good talk streaming service. And David's asked me to go on that after this to talk about other issues of the day. And again, the great thing with that, just like this, is that there are people commenting all the time, and people feel engaged, and it's really important to be engaged. And this is where the government is failing, is they have disengaged their electorate. And because the BBC is running the show, absolutely running the show at the moment.
Yeah. Well, can I say, actually, folks, you should follow Unity News Network. They're great people. I know David and his other colleague. So they're great. I've been on it myself, Rebecca. So look, what I'll do now then, and quite good timing actually, that I will bring this particular episode of your evening to an end. Thank you very much, Rebecca, as always, for being with us. I know everyone loves to see you on this one. Thanks to all of you who have been commenting, as always. It's good to see you all tonight. I will be back with a vengeance later in the week, all things being equal, and hope to catch up with you then. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me, but I'd just like to say, Daniel, I think if you Google or go into YouTube and type in Unity News Network, or on their Facebook page, you'll find the live stream there. It's usually either on Facebook or YouTube, so it will be out there. Yeah.
So if you want more of Rebecca, go there. When does it start? Does it start now, Rebecca? When does it start?
Yeah, I think so. But I think I said I need half an hour break to.
Okay. Well, everyone, go and have a cup of tea, sit down, and catch up with Rebecca in 30 minutes. You'll catch up with me later in the week, and we'll see you then. Bye for now, everyone.
Bye.